Hello everybody. Today I'm going to tie a shirt and I'm going to talk about what I'm using and how I'm doing it. We're going to do it in real time, not sped up today. So here we go. This is my scrap piece of PVC pipe. I use this to wrap the waxed thread around in order to pull it so that I'm not cutting my fingers on the artificial sinew. So, and let me just show you this. I get this sinew, artificial sinew from Amazon. I also get it from Dharma Trading Company. When I have dyes or other supplies to order from their site, then I'll usually order some of this too, but I'm kind of into the convenience of just ordering it from Amazon when it's the only thing that I need to get. So it's available there. Here's my shirt. This is a Hanes, I think it's technically an undershirt for men, but it is very soft and stretchy because it's 95% cotton and 5% spandex. Very comfortable to wear. Lots of customers tell me that it's like their favorite t-shirt because of how soft and stretchy and comfy it is. So love that. It's also, I think, easier to get good results with Geode tie-dye because of the stretch. So after all of that dialogue, let's go ahead and start tying this up. I usually start with the back because I find that my first section that I tie doesn't turn out as well. It's like not as organic. So start in an area that is not as noticeable. So I'm gonna go with the back area by the armpit. So we're just gonna try to grab some of the fabric, and I'm trying to grab it in a way that is a bit messy. I want to create some organic shapes instead of just having a big bullseye. I just tossed my spool onto the floor and then find the end here. The very first tie can kind of be a little tricky because the end is not anchored anywhere, so it could like just pull right off when you're pulling it. So I anchor it by wrapping it around two of my fingers a couple times. And then, okay, so I wrap it about 4 or 5 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you see, I tried to make it messy, and this makes for some interesting lines. And it took me a long time to be able to let myself do that because I always used to be so fixated on getting those lines like wrapped around on top of each other perfectly because it seems like the right thing to do, right? Okay, so I wrapped it around my puller and I've got it anchored on my fingers, wrapped around the shirt. Now we're gonna pull this tight. Try not to pull anything towards your face because sometimes this breaks. You don't want to hit yourself in the face. But just to keep this in frame for right now, I'm gonna be a little dangerous. Okay, there we go. It's tight. And it is starting to fray. You can't really see it, but you'll learn how hard you need to pull so that it's tight enough to create some crisp white lines, but not too hard so that it doesn't snap. You're probably gonna have to snap it a few times to learn where that threshold is. Okay, so we've got the base tie right here. And to make this interesting, I'm going to like pull down a section and then make another tie. So what you might be tempted to do, and what I did for a long time, is just pull this up and make another tie right there. So instead, I'm gonna like pull some fabric out and then make the tie. So I'll show you what that looks like on the shirt after it's dyed. Looks pretty cool to me, I think. Okay. So got that section pulled down. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna try 4 this time. Give it a little tug, wrap it around. Okay, there we go. If you know, 4 or 5 wraps is about as good as you need because, well, 4 or 5 and then tighten it. If you wrap it like 8 times and then tighten it, only like 4 or 5 of those wraps are gonna get actually pulled down tight. The rest of them just kind of sit there jumbled up doing nothing. So, all right, so we're gonna pull down, try and show you what I'm doing here. Pull some out. One, two, three, four. Tried to wrap them around kind of messy. Little tug. There we go. Nice and tight. I guess I'll just leave that. Just do 3 ties for this section. I think I'll finish the shirt. I'm just gonna keep grabbing new sections and doing the same process. And I'll be back when it is time to dye the shirt. I've got my Geode tied shirt here. I have half of the tentacles going in this direction and half going in this direction. I just like rubber banded them so that they'll stay in place. Yeah, I just like doing this because then it makes it easier to apply bands of color that line up with the ties. So yeah, next I want to talk about the dye and the soda ash. So I ran out of soda ash that I used to get from Dharma Trading Company. I picked this up from the store. It's Pool pH adjuster. It seems to be working fine. I mix it with my dye. This is a bunch of random dye colors all mixed together in one jar with soda ash. So dye and soda ash, the ratio that I'm currently using is about 1:1. I do this because it makes the dye easier to sprinkle. I think it's conserving dye. Soda ash gets applied with the dye in one step. Makes it very simple. So I'm going to go over to my sink over here, and I'm going to use my hose attachment to spray a fine mist of cold water to wet the dye and the soda ash, and it will seep down into the shirt. And the colors that I apply first will fill the lines. Any color except for pink, red, brown. Those colors are obviously have bigger molecules that don't soak under the ties as easily. Again. Okay, let's get dyeing. I'm applying these bands of colors as I mentioned earlier. So the darker purple area is the color blue-violet, and the other band of color is just a random mix of dyes. I don't even remember. So I've got orange and black that I'm applying on the other side, and that's all I ended up doing to this one. Just one application of dye to each side, and then I stuck it in this bin of hot water to soak for about 30 minutes, and then I'll rinse. This is the very first section that I tied, and as you can see here, this bubble area is the part of the fabric that I pulled out before tying the second section. And I think this is also another area that I pulled out, which is much bigger than like this spacing. So I think that looks interesting. Another area where that strategy looks interesting is like right in here. It gives more space for the dye to seep in and fully saturate. I think it acts as kind of like a wick, pulling in more dye and eliminating something like this where it's kind of blotchy. I'm okay with this happening sometimes, but I don't want to see this all over the place. So that's the back. I think it looks pretty nice with like the pinks and then little bits of green. Very nice. This is the front. I'm pretty happy with this. I applied orange and black at the same time, and I think it did an excellent job of toning down the orange so it didn't look like childish. I'm not really sure how to phrase that, but I think it looks nice. It's mixed in, adds some depth. But the orange used to overpower some shirts, but I think this looks okay. So this here is the blue-violet color. You see the blue bleeds farther than the red part, so it'll go under the ties, while the pinkish red area does not. So that's a pretty cool effect. And the black area, this is Raven. I always love adding Raven because it adds like a nice shadowing effect along the lines. So there it is.